Welcome to the Profits in Pajamas podcast. I'm Danielle DeTeach, or Coach Danni D, and I help women entrepreneurs and professionals to achieve their personal success stories that include joy, fulfillment, and balance. This is where we talk about how to build your business in a way that allows you to work with ease, be successful, and enjoy your life. My happy place is spending as much time in my PJs as humanly possible. And I want to help other women find their happy space while running profitable businesses or having a successful career. So get comfortable and let's dig in. Hello and welcome to the Profits in Pajamas podcast. I am your host, Coach Danni D, always here trying to help you find that space where your life reflects success through joy, fulfillment, and alignment. I always want you to live that best life today, not wait for tomorrow, not wait for, whenever, right? I am so excited to have our guest today. Nikki, we actually met in a cohort. We're in the same cohort of another coach's program, Coach Stephanie. So Stephanie has been on a past episode of the podcast. You can go back and look her up. There are three Stephanies at this point that have been on the podcast. So um, it's Stephanie Julia, but check out all three. They're all like really, really cool women. So I'm going to give a intro of Nikki, but I want to jump in because we had such a great conversation the first time that we met, and I want to continue that conversation here for you guys. So, Nikki M.G. Cole is a nationally recognized, campaign strategist, fundraiser, coach, trainer, and organizer for workers' rights, economic and environmental justice, and inclusive democracy. She has over 25 years of experience. Every time I read out a number of years for somebody, the way that black don't crack, because I'm like 25 years where, okay. But anyways, 25 years of experience coaching individuals, creating winning teams and culture, developing training and curriculum, and managing operational structures and budgets for a variety of organizations and grassroots candidates in the DC metropolitan area and nationally. She is the creator of the Superhuman Leadership and People Power and executive coaching program she develops to teach women leaders how to think like an organizer, act like an executive, and rest like a human. Welcome, Nikki. I love that ending, right? I
Thank
absolutely love
you.
that ending. I think that's the goal that we are all aspiring towards. But I want to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so I want to start off just, asking you to tell me about your entrepreneurial journey. Like, how did you get to where you are right now? I mean, I'm just even reading your bio. I just, my imagination and mind goes so many different places because of all of the amazing things that you've done.
Well, um, my entrepreneurial journey kind of started when I was a kid. I grew up watching my aunt, my grandmother run business, and my mom wasn't an entrepreneur, and the women entrepreneurs in my family had nicer, bigger houses and nicer cars. And I was like, well, I want to be like them. So it really, around 6 years old, 7 years old is when I was going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a boss bitch entrepreneur one day. So, I, um, so my grandmother ran hospitality businesses, bed and breakfast. So my first jobs were in hospitality. I worked for her, then I worked in restaurants. So my first dream was to be a restaurateur, actually, because I had worked in restaurants for about 16 years, right? And done every different role from management to host, right? So I was like, I know how to run one of these. Um, but what ended up happening was I had a bicycle accident and um, got a hairline fracture in my foot.
Mm,
This is when I was like 20, I don't know, 20 industry, having my dreams, right, to open my own restaurant one day. But I was making 333 an hour plus tips. I had worked at places that didn't pay me anything per hour. It was just straight up tips. I was surrounded by drugs and alcohol, um, triple shifts, double shifts, right? It was just like I had the dream, but I didn't see any path forward of how to get the money to start a restaurant. So one day I was riding my bike from job to job and I got a hairline fracture. This actually really pissed me off because I didn't have any health insurance so this incident in my life really pissed me off and propelled me to start advocating for restaurant workers' rights. I really started questioning how come we don't have any health insurance? Why do I have a tipped wage when other jobs make more than this? Like, what is this in hospitality?
yeah.
And if this is the industry that I want to go in, like, I need to understand how this works, why things are the way they are. That's just how my brain works. So I started advocating. I ended up building the Restaurant Opportunity Center of Washington, D.C., along with two other fabulous women, Bonnie Kwan and Megan Aretti. And at the time, I didn't realize it that this was still my path to entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, there I learned how to build systems, right? Systems is
Right.
systems. This
Yeah.
one just happened to have a C3 status. So I built that up, built the membership, learned how to campaign, raise money, right? Do all of these things, speak to people's self-interest, their pain points, offer a solution, offer ways for people to get involved and grew that organization. I am happy that it still exists today. I'm no longer there, but that was really like my first organization or systems building. After that, I went on, I'm not going to tell you my whole life story, but I went on and worked at a wide variety of different nonprofits. But at one point, when Trump got elected the first time around, I was just so burnt out at that point had been grinding, right? Just because it was nonprofit and not a corporation or something doesn't mean grind culture doesn't exist. I was grinding,
Yeah.
wasn't taking good care of myself, and I was so burnt out. I started my first business then. That was for profit, and it was um a style therapy business. I started it in my basement. I after I left advocacy and nonprofit work, I took a trip up and down the East Coast. I stopped at a bunch of vintage places, thrift stores. I bought a ton of fabulous clothes and accessories, and I brought them back to DC to sell them and style women, and have introspective conversations with them about what made them feel joyful and what made them feel powerful and translate that into a wardrobe for them. I did a fashion show. I put on brunches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing it from the comfort of my house. And I was just winging it. I didn't know anything about setting up tax
Mm-hmm.
payroll
Right. Right.
systems or QuickBooks. I mean, I did know because I did it in the nonprofit industry for so long, but for some reason in my brain, it didn't translate at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Bitch, you know how to do all of this
Right.
administrative stuff? Like
Right.
it's the same.
It's the
It
same
just
thing. It's
didn't.
just it's a different space. But I think we all get caught there sometimes, right? Like where we're
Yes.
like the information is totally right there, but for whatever reason, we just don't make the connection.
Yep. And I didn't fully believe in myself. I had imposter syndrome at that point in time, so I was afraid to ask other people for help, right? So, it was inevitable that at a certain point I was going to come to a block, right? I could
Hmm.
only do so much as one person.
Yes.
And what had happened was, I got married and had a baby. And then I was like, ooh, I need health insurance. And I was too scared to figure out how to do that on my own as an entrepreneur.
Right, right.
So I went back into the nonprofit industry, started advocating again, right? And it just came back to a certain point where I was like, I don't want to work for other people. Like I had that taste of
Hmm.
freedom. I was
Yes.
like, I need to get that freedom back. And it was at a certain point, I was working at a union and I thought, oh, I've made it. I've got a pension. I've
Hmm.
got an office, right? I have a fat salary. I get a guaranteed raise every year. The work is stable, meaningful. Like I've made it. And I
Yes.
found myself miserable there
Yeah.
within a year. And it wasn't because they're a bad organization. It's because I'm meant to be free. I
Yes.
don't like
Yeah, it
other,
just wasn't the fit. It wasn't the right
yeah.
fit.
And I saw that the union would hire contractors and they would pay them 10 grand, 30 grand for like, and I would never see them. And they'd be like, we're doing communications consulting. And I was like, I need to get that consultant money.
Right, right,
I need to
right.
become a
Yes.
consultant. So, what had happened was I read Rachel Rogers' book, We Should All Be Millionaires. Heard my husband heard her on Sway in the morning. He was like, you should look her up. She sounds like you. So I read her book and I was like, this is me. So then I built a website. Then I emailed 20 people. Hey, what do you think about my website? And two of them were like, I want a contract with you right now. And I had no idea what my offer was at that point. I was just like, it's Nikki M.G. I'm the power expert. Here's my resume. Contact button. That was it.
Right,
That was
right.
it. I wasn't doing executive coaching. It was just like, I can do anything you need, what you need. And so my first two contracts, one was for strategic planning and executive coaching with someone that I had worked with previously, right? I had already been coaching them. They were an intern and just
Hmm.
needed help. They had become an executive director and were scared and was like needed some guidance. So that was my first contract, 30 grand, boom, out the pop for that. And the other one was for grant writing, which I had been doing forever in the nonprofit industry. So I got a retainer. And these were things, and so I had made like 54 grand in a wink,
Hmm.
basically. And at that point, I should have just left. What I did was leave the union, right? I was like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna leave the union and do more of what I want to do. But the retainer contract, I did so well. They're like, why don't you just come on with us full time? But their full time was 4 days a week virtual. And I told them, well, I'm building a business. As long as you're okay with that,
Right.
then I'm going to do that. So what I did was then over the next 2 years, work for them Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays I built my business for 2 years until I got to a point where I had actually made as much in my side hustle as I did with my salary. And then at that point, I left the full-time
Hmm.
job and just stepped full-time into doing it for myself. So that's how I got to this point. And it's been now a year and 1 month since I have been um, entrepreneurship full time without having a job that pays my insurance and stuff. That's what it was. I was afraid of getting my own insurance. It took me several years to just get over that mental hump and find out the information how to get it myself. And now I'm like, damn, I should have just done that years ago. It's so easy.
So,
But here I am.
so I took so many notes. I got so many things that I want to like little parts that like pulled out comments on me. Though I'm gonna start with the last one, which was just you sharing that realness about the insurance. I feel like the idea of insurance has so many entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs in a chokehold. Anytime I
Yeah.
talk to someone who wants to leave the 9 to 5, and I'm gonna give the caveat, I am not saying to leave your 9 to 5. I will not pay your light bill. So, make wise decisions. But if that is your desire, I know that that is a thing that has a lot of people in a chokehold, like that fear of figuring out the insurance piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just even
Yeah.
sharing that, I hope that like lightens somebody's load. Like it is, it's doable, just look into it. And I had a friend
Yes.
um that I remember when she, was going through that process, and she was like, girl, if I would have known that I could have just did this, I would have made different decisions, or I would have made decisions sooner. So
Anyone who's listening or watching this, I would say you better thank Obama right now because that's how
yes,
I'm doing it. Okay. Like
yes,
the private insurance is expensive AF. The Cobra from the job or whatever was expensive AF. And I was like, well, let me get it because that's probably going to be less than what insurance actually is. And hell no. When I
mm-mm,
actually looked it up, I'm in Maryland. So I went to maryland.gov, right? Like your state's government and looked up on the search like insurance, right? And it pulls up, here's how you apply for state insurance. And you put like how much you make a year approximately, and then here's all your options of the insurance you can
right.
get. It's easier than like what you have to go through at your job, right? Yeah. So I picked an option and now I'm paying about $340. I think it's going up to 400 this year a month to cover me and my daughter. And that's what it is. It's $400 a month. And when I used to run nonprofits, I was paying at least $800, $1,000 a month per employee for their health insurance. So
Yeah,
it's just a whole lot cheaper to do it just go. Yeah, if someone had just shown me how to do it before, but yeah, for some reason there was this mental blockage. I have security with the job because they provide health insurance. Well, you know what? Fuck that health insurance that your job probably offers too, because every time you had to go to the doctor or something, you still have to pay out of pocket,
right.
right? It's not like health insurance is protecting you from a whole lot. Let's keep it real.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's true too. And I actually saw something. I hadn't researched it any further, but I saw something recently where they were talking about like these like doctor cohorts, like where you just go in for the service. Like these doctors don't operate on insurance. They operate like you basically have like a subscription, so to speak, like, and most of the stuff is not as expensive as it is when you go through insurance. Like they were like saying like, oh, you just go in and get the x-ray, and the x-ray is like $5, as opposed to like when you go through your insurance it's like 100, like. So I didn't look into that further, but I'm just saying I know that there are other options. I know that in this country we
Yeah.
have like the most backwards insurance in the world.
Yes.
Like that's just crazy. So you have just put on my mind, and I actually spoke to someone recently who teaches about insurance. So I need to make sure she's on here
Bring them on.
so she can educate us further, because I'm like,
Yeah.
that is a barrier for a lot of people. But I love that you kind of like dismantled it to the extent of at least go research it. Like don't get in your head and not move
Yeah.
forward because of this thing. It may be possible
Yeah.
for you. The other
And
thing, oh, go
the
ahead.
other before just one other thing, if you're listening and that is something that's scary for you, before I found Maryland.gov, I found like health brokers, people that will go look for what options were available for me and then come back and tell me the options.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like
Like
a
there's
really good
people out
idea.
there that can help. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause some stuff I'm like, cause I'm gonna be 100 with y'all. Like, I mean, one, my husband works, so I'm on his insurance. But two, even when I worked and we were on my insurance, I just gave him those papers. I That breaks my brain. I'm just like the insurance stuff just breaks my brain. But I think, we do have to like not let stuff be so scary that we don't do the research. Okay,
Yeah.
another thing that you said this kind of at the beginning when you started talking about how you got into advocacy, right? You started with there was a problem. You weren't good with that problem. And so you were like, we need to fix this problem. And the reason why I want to bring that
Yeah.
back up, I know that everybody is not going to walk out necessarily today and become an advocate or, do that. But even if that's not your path in your lane, in your everyday life, there are things that are a problem that you've accepted as a norm, right? Like, I think a lot of times that's how people are stuck in spaces where they're just going through the motions. This is what I'm supposed to
Hmm.
do. This is the path that somebody sent me down. And now that's just where I'm stuck. And I love how you saw there was a problem and you were like, no, somebody needs to fix this. Well, I guess I'm gonna fix this. Nobody else is going to fix this, right? I would just want to like, talk about that a little bit more. Like, what was that like for you? And I know some people are more, courageous in that way, or some people are just more bothered by things not being right, right? Like, I'm a person, I'm like, why is this broken? Like, there's like are better
Hmm.
ways. Why are we doing this way? But not everybody thinks in that way. But I want to like get inside of your mind of like how, you felt in that moment and how it
Mm.
led you to advocate for yourself and for others.
You know, I gotta keep it real. I think before, so it was a long process, okay? It wasn't just like, I see this problem, I'm going to fix it now. I am a Black woman and I have experienced and seen racism and sexism my whole life. And so, since I was a young child, I have always had this fire in me to ask question, why? Why is it that way? That doesn't make any sense. I think this is stupid, right? And I think there's another way to do it. I've just always had that inside of me because of racism, because of oppression, right? I'm just like, fuck that, right? Like if so it's created this shape in me where if someone tells me no, I'm the type of person that's like, well, I'm going to figure out how to do it anyway, and I'm going to do it 10 times better than you ever thought I could because fuck you, right? Like
Right.
that's
Right.
literally my
Yeah, no, I
shape,
get it. I get it.
my
Like
disposition.
I'm similar in thought process because I'm like, but this is dumb. Like, so y'all all sat together in a meeting and this what y'all came out with.
Right. So, what had happened was I had that disposition. Then I went to college, right? And I studied literature of African American civil rights movement and
Hmm.
environmental science. I'm like, why is the world the way that it is,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Looking for answers because nobody tells you, right? The
Right,
answers to why shit is the way it is. So I'm searching and searching, right? Then I have a deep understanding after all that of structural racism and capitalism. Okay, now I understand the system that I work in. Okay, then I was just pissed off, right? Because I don't know what to do about it. You can't just fix racism, right? At
right,
this point,
right.
you just
No,
can't shift capitalism to make it equitable and work for people. So I've spent many years depressed, okay, and feeling lost,
yeah.
and just hustling, right, to like live and get by and figure things out. When I it was like an act of God. My bike flipped over, right? I didn't hit any rocks. I didn't hit a ditch. No car hit me. It was just like God, the universe was like, enough of this shit. It's time for you to do what you meant to
Something
do.
different, right?
Something that was a catalyst for my life that led me to actually go through the system in a different way and feel what the average American goes through, right? Who's an adult and working. And I didn't have health insurance. And as soon as I got in that ambulance, they asked me, "What's your health insurance?" Right? And as soon as I
Mm-hmm.
got to the hospital, "What's your health insurance? What's your health insurance?" Right? And there was a sense I felt shame,
Yeah,
right? And then I felt angry because I'm like, no, I work three jobs. How come none of the employers offer me health insurance?
right.
Um, and so then I was in a position where I was on crutches and I literally could not bartend or walk dogs, right? Which is what I
Right.
was doing at the time. And so I was looking for ways to make money on crutches, and I came across this ad in Craigslist at the time for people, they would pay stipends to people to train them how to be fine dining servers and bartenders. And by that point, I had, I don't know, trained thousands of people working in the
Mm-hmm.
industry over 20 years at that point. And I was like, I can train people. And the little tiny office that they set up happened to be 3 blocks from my house. So I would crutch my ass 3 blocks down to go see what about this money opportunity. And I crutched because I couldn't catch a cab at the time. There was no Uber back
Yeah.
then. So racism in cabs, right? Anyway, so that's why I was crutching, right? And not cabbing. So I crutched myself down there and I got an orientation, right? Bonnie and Megana, they just threw up this little office. They had just come to my city and they did a political education orientation. So it was the first time in my life that anyone had ever presented, here's how you participate in the democratic process
Mm.
about the things that you're pissed off about. Like no
Yeah.
one had ever said it plain to me
Right.
before.
Right.
I had studied the civil rights movement, but no one, like, as a learner for me, I need someone to show me
Yes.
physically, hold my hand. I can't just read about it in a book and be like, oh, I know how to create change now, right? It just
Right.
wasn't connecting for me. So these women showed me if you want to join this policy committee, if you want to join this women's committee, here's what the plan is, what we're going to do. So, but I was like, well, I need to make money. I'm on crutches. I got to pay rent. I
Right.
have health bills now because I don't have health insurance. So they were like, we're going to start this organization by researching. And for every 15 surveys you get done, we'll pay you $250. The surveys were 60 questions each, and
Oh,
they
wow.
were like every question, there were policy questions about if
Mm-hmm.
people, what minimum wage did they make? Did they get paid sick days? If they didn't, what happens when they were sick? What
Right.
happened? Did they go to work, right? Do you have health insurance, right? It like got at the root of all of the structural challenges in the restaurant industry, which is one of the largest industries in the whole United States. Like
Yeah.
millions of people work in these conditions. So it's getting at the heart of it. So I ended up talking to over 430, 450, something like that, workers about these questions. And I was motivated because I needed to pay my rent. So,
Right.
but also I had worked in the restaurant industry by that point for 12 years or something. So my phone was a Rolodex of workers. So I would just call people. I go crutch over and visit them at their restaurant. I lived in downtown DC, so I was surrounded by restaurants. I would get people to fill out my survey on slow shifts, right? So I just got really comfortable talking to people about something passionate about, and they would do it. And I learned there that I wasn't the only one facing these problems, that it was mostly everyone struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to quantify that. We put out a report. and then kicked off a policy campaign. First campaign that I led was for paid sick days. Um, Something small. Can we win 3 to 5 days for people that have none? To at least get paid the minimum wage if they need to call out when they're sick. And it took us 3.5 years, but we won it. And it was so exciting to be able to win something to actually make change. And so after
Mhm.
that first 3 years of just keeping, doing it. Oh, I mean, I was on crutches. I made my money with the surveys, but then they hired me because I became full time. So it was my first like career switch from working in restaurants making tips to becoming a professional advocate. So I did that for 4 years, won a campaign, and then other organizations started recruiting me. They wanted me to come work for them. So I just kept going. But there was a certain point in time in my advocacy career. It was about mm, 6 years in pattern. No matter what crumbs working class people would ask for, there was always not small businesses, but huge corporations coming out and saying, this will kill small business and this will hurt our business.
Right.
And they would win, right? Like over and over again, or water down anything that working class people asked for. So at first, I was just really pissed. I was like, business is the enemy, right?
Right.
So just angry at business, right? Okay. And this is how a lot of people in unions and nonprofits who
Hmm.
advocate feel. Um, my perspective has changed over time. I'm
Yeah.
still fuck big corporations, okay? But like I'm
And that's
very
fair.
pro business
Yes.
today. Okay, but the evolution it took, I'm just explaining the evolution of
No,
how
I get
I.
it. I get it. Like it is a process, and I think a lot of times we don't think about the full picture of it all, right? Like, because I love that you brought up about the like small business thing and where the messaging is coming from versus like,
Hmm.
the reality. Because, even as you were talking, I was thinking in the back of my mind that I'm sure that there's some small businesses that are like, I'm on the other side of this coin,
Hmm.
of where do I get this money to afford to do
Yes.
these things for these employees, right? And that is to some degree a real concern for small businesses, but I do believe that
Hmm.
it is, inflated to just squash that because it's going to hurt the bigger businesses. Like I feel like it's one of those things that you got to tackle it up here for it to make sense down here. Like if you
Yep.
dismantle that, it will benefit small business and working class people.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the same. And I realize this now, like you were asking before about where do you get the spark of the idea? What's your brain thinking about? Here's this problem for all these people. I'm going to solve it. It's the same, it's the same mind as an entrepreneur, okay?
Yeah.
Um, as an advocate, I saw a problem. I was going to work sick. I had served food to people having conjunctivitis, pink eye, the flu, right? And so years later, you have COVID, right? And
Yeah.
so the restaurant industry, if you look at all of the data, the statistics from the government, the restaurant industry is the number one place where communicable diseases are spread. It's food, saliva, drink, people coming in and out from it's community, right? Like,
Yes.
and so I saw this as a problem. You can't people serving and not have access to a single paid sick day, like not one,
Right.
it means they're going to work sick, right?
Right.
And they're helping spread things, and that's just not right. So, that was a problem that needed solving. So, as an entrepreneur, um, you should be solving someone's problem.
Yeah.
And if you're not solving a problem, then you have to think, well, how can I solve someone's problem, right? Otherwise, you're
Right.
not going to be in demand. Um, and so I think that there's a responsibility for entrepreneurs, and especially for large corporations, right? Because they are people that have grown over time and figured out how to scale and sustain and
Right.
skew the market with their power in their favor, actually, especially in the restaurant industry. Um, Large corporations set the floor of what food prices are because they can bargain, right?
Mm-hmm.
For
Yes.
So, anyway, I feel that there's a responsibility for them to figure out how to grow business and reinvest in their business that's about the people. There's something that's missing when business thinks that I want to scale my business, but I don't want to reinvest in the people that are helping me grow. Like, I think some people just don't value other people and they
Yeah.
see that people as tools instead of the main infrastructure that makes their business connect with other human beings that want to
Yeah.
buy their shit.
Yes.
Um, and so I think it's a problem that me as a small entrepreneur who has been in business now for 4.5 years, I can figure out how to pay people that work for me at least $35 an hour or more. But you mean to tell me that the Darden Corporation, for example, that has thousands of Red Lobsters and Capitol Hills and Seasons 52s and Texas Roadhouses. You mean to tell me that they can figure out how to buy all this property, get all of this food, have food waste, pay all this electricity, but they can't figure out how to pay people more than $3.63 an hour and not give them health insurance? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? And
It
so
doesn't.
those are the type of corporations that keep the playing field skewed in their favor, that say, no, we don't want to give paid sick days. We don't want to have a higher minimum wage. We don't want to give health insurance. We don't want to do sexual harassment protections, right? Or education on the job for people. We don't want to do it. Meanwhile, there are small businesses that pay a full minimum wage or living wage. I've talked to restaurateurs that
Mhm.
actually pay their dishwashers salaries, that pay
Yeah.
people salaries, right?
Yeah.
In the restaurant. There's a zillion different ways to solve problems, to feed people and take care of people.
Yeah.
You just have to think outside of the box and keep going, right? And so at the end of the day, legislators are the managers of society, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of them aren't entrepreneurs. So they're thinking, I need this problem solved. I need to make sure that people have a means to get food, right? So I
Yeah.
support grocery store owners, I support restaurateurs, I support large farmers, right? The owners, because whatever the owner says must be the way that business should be,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they have a lot of influence
Yeah.
in how society actually works. And that's why they regularly win anytime the little people ask for more crumbs and they're told no. So at some point in my career, I saw that pattern and I was like, I gotta become, this is now my time. It's now time for me to become a business owner because I want to be able to go to legislators and actually say, here's how I run business, feed people, produce merchandise, scale, and pay people well. And I'm still here giving you money for your election too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want
Right.
that kind of power. So, I have to figure it out and I have to offer something that solves a problem. So I'm not in the restaurant industry now. I know that we've been talking about that so much because that's what my
I mean,
advocacy
but I
has
think
been
that's an
about.
understandable also analogy. Like people understand that analogy regardless of what industry they're in.
Yes, because it's like that for health, the health industry, for housing industry and development, like because of structural racism in this country for so many hundreds of years, unfortunately, there's just some corporations and businesses and people that have 100 years, 50 years, whatever it is, lead than other marginalized groups of people
Yeah.
when it comes to like building businesses and building systems that solve problems, right? To take care of masses of people. So, I over time, I've worked 16 years doing advocacy and policy work, one paid sick days, minimum wage increases, wage theft prevention laws, all kinds of stuff for working class people in DC and nationally. And so I am really good at developing campaign strategy, at coaching other leaders how to get involved. So that is what my business focuses on. Um, I I just I took some what are they called? The strengths test, right?
Mm-hmm.
And leaned into my genius zone and started after I started my business, which is like, hey, I'm out here, hire me forever for whatever. Then I started clarifying actually what I problem I do want to solve. And the problem that I solve is burnout in marginalized women working in the nonprofit, workers' rights, democracy, electoral space, in the social justice space. There is a ton of turnover in the movement because even though it's social justice, it feels like corporate grind culture. It's against people's values. And it's also fraught with contradictions. You might be working for an organization that supports racial justice that still does racially unjust shit in house, right? And it takes a
Mm-hmm.
toll on people's soul. But that is part of the work of transformation, right? Individually, collectively, and then broader. But we lose a lot of people because they're just like, fuck this shit, I'm out. But
Yeah.
we need everyone, right, to participate in democracy, to make change, especially now, right, with what we're seeing. So I teach women how to like it is. Think like an organizer, right? Solving problems, you have to power map, right? How are you communicating things that appeal to people's self-interest, right? But act like an executive. You don't have to do it all yourself. How you delegate things, how you direct people, large groups of people to solve large complex problems, but then how you actually um, respect your biorhythms,
Mm-hmm.
and rest in regular cycles, right? And don't feel guilty about your self-care, so that you can sustain a career in social justice, scale your organization to get the resources that you actually need to counter these motherfuckers who keep holding our people down. So, that's my journey.
So like the last part of what you said just kind of like sparked a question for me. And I know that sometimes I shy away from certain things because I get frustrated, right? Because of one, I can clearly see the answer and I realize that the parties involved are not interested in the answer. Because there's a difference between we don't know what the answer is and we really at the core are not interested in the answer. But we can't say that out loud, right? Um, so there's that part of me. There's this strong like justice part of me that like, we should be doing the right thing. How do you balance the emotional part with the strategic part?
Hmm. So, There's no like easy answer. This type of work is extremely emotional, you know. Like I get triggered when I talk to restaurant workers today, even especially when they're telling me what they're going through because I went through that. I went through not having heat in the middle of winter. I went through eviction, right? Like people are going through shit. So it is very emotional, and then it's infuriating when you hear people's livelihoods being used as bargaining chips for this or that, right? So I think to balance sh strategy and emotionality is one to be very vigilant, like every day about your own self-care ritual and doing it before you take care of other people. So for people in my field in particular, it's critical to spend time every day resting without guilt, reading something that expands your mind, that's not like a policy brief or news about what the administration is doing, but something that actually like inspires you and gives you a new perspective. It's important to do some centering, right? Just looking inward for yourself, even for a couple of minutes, to affirm yourself every day, to tell yourself that you love yourself, because the opposition wants you not to. They want you to think that you're stupid and not smarter than
Yeah.
them, that you don't know what you're talking about. So to affirm yourself every day. It's critically important to eat every day. I can't stress this enough, to eat healthy and not skip meals. People in my field are notorious for having like martyr and like savior complex and think, oh, I just got to get through this work, and then they find themselves not eating like all day long. I was just coaching, or I was just leading a strategic planning session for a training organization last week, and one of the organizers said, one of the staff said, yeah, I fasted yesterday for 18 hours, not intentionally, but I was just working, like work, work, work. And so you literally cannot fight injustice on empty. So you have to eat a healthy breakfast. You've got to process your thoughts and your emotions, right? Whether you journal or, I don't know, voice record or something, or make art, like do something that actually processes your thoughts and your emotions so that it doesn't get trapped inside your mind, swirling around, and you're thinking negative thoughts, thoughts of scarcity, thoughts of sadness, thoughts of anger and frustration at the system, and just letting it sit there. You actually need to process it and get that shit out of your body so that you can stay hopeful and keep going. And you need to move. You need to exercise. And it doesn't have to be like rigorous exercise. I actually hate exercising. So it took me a long time to figure out what do I like to do to move my body that actually makes me feel good and that I want to do. And I
Hmm.
had to think about what did I like to do as a kid. And as a kid, I loved to ride my bike and I like to pretend to be a mermaid in the pool or the ocean. So that's what I do. I'm a city bicyclist to get here to there. I don't feel like I'm exercising. I just feel like I'm getting from point A to B. And then I have a membership where I can swim indoors any day of the year and pretend to be a mermaid. So you got to move your body and do these things literally in the morning before you take care of anyone else so that when the day is shitty and you don't win, you have the energy to try again the next day and you still feel like your life is full of purpose and meaning for you, you know? Um, so that's how I balance it now. It took
Hmm.
me many, many years to figure that out, because I burnt out over and over and over again. And I had to figure it out. I'm like, if I want to fight for justice and create the world for my daughter, for myself, right? I don't want her
Right.
going through the same shit I went through. Like, I have
Right.
to figure out how to be a freedom fighter for the rest of my life and figure out how to make it sustainable. And I don't want to be broke and poor. Like, I'm not going
Right.
down like
Right.
that. So,
Right.
how do I make this work?
Right. Right. And I love all the things you said because as I'm listening to you, I'm always like there's a part of me that's listening just from a woman's lens and just from a black woman's lens. And there's a part of me that's listening from an entrepreneur lens, and there's a part of me that's listening from my past, right? Because when you said about people don't eat, I was like, let me just hang my little head in shame because when I get focused, a hundred
Yeah,
percent when I get focused, it does not even occur to me, right? And
yeah.
so even this version of myself that is like heavily dipped in self-care, at least I vocalized it. So today
Hmm.
I was working, I was in the zone, and it was getting past noon, and I'm like, I didn't eat breakfast, I didn't eat lunch. And I knew we were getting on
Hmm.
soon, and I was like, I kind of done backed myself into a good little corner. Um, but I said something out loud, and so then I said something, and my husband shows up with like this little plate of like just some fruit and some cheese and some, just something for me to nibble on or
Yes.
whatever, right? But there's a version of me that wouldn't have even made the connection, and then it would have been like late in the day, and I'd have been like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, what just happened here?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
heard everything you said through all of those lenses. And I'm saying that to say, I don't want the person that turned this on and said, I'm not interested in social justice, that, listen to the themes and the points because they're relevant regardless. But especially as Black women, whether we're interested or not, is interested in us. So it is a part of our reality, right? Like, so we can, preserve our peace as much as we, choose, right? But the reality is it's going to come into your world some way, somehow, because the world that we're in has not changed,
Hmm.
so it's there. Um,
Yeah. It is there, and people are making policies about you and for you because you are not at the table. And so I want any entrepreneur who's listening to this who's like, I'm not into social justice. I want you to start getting into it. I want you to find out what bills are being passed in your local ordinance on your back because they are. Big corporations are always passing laws that benefit them and that screw over small entrepreneurs, saying in the name of small entrepreneurs. And so, what I want to see is entrepreneurs coming out and saying, actually, no, I want the government to work for me. If you want to raise wages, if you want me to, have offer health insurance, where are the government offsets? Where are the grants that you're giving to us, right? Like, we
right.
need this. We need some money so we can figure out how to switch up operations, how to redo our pricing matrices, right?
Right.
In order to make the math for everyone.
Right, because we're still reliant on these big corporations for supplies, for, all of
Hmm.
these different things. And if their prices are going up, but uh, no one's salaries, right, are going up, no one's, all of this is not like I was on a soapbox last night about a couple of things, and one of them was this, like there needs to be some sort of like I don't want to say, I don't know if mandate is the right word, but there needs to be something that makes these corporations have to raise salaries with some correlation to inflation. Like it doesn't make sense. And small businesses are the first ones hit, right? Because, I know I have a lot of, listeners that are small business owners. We already know that the money that you were making a couple of years ago, 5, 10 years ago, is not the same money of today, because especially depending on what your service is, right? What your product or service is, people money get tight. The things that are not necessary are the first things to go. So you
Hmm.
start to see that, everybody feels it on a different level, but small business owners definitely are feeling the fact that eggs cost, $85 now. So they're feeling the backlash of that. And so yeah, I think we definitely have to pay better attention to what's going on around us. And I love that you are touching on ways that we can get involved, like ways that we can be better at this. So I guess that's my next question is like, I'm on the sidelines. I'm, hearing that there are these things that are going on in my community. What what do you suggest as the first step for somebody who is, realizing that yes, I need to be involved?
Yeah. Well, since this is a business, entrepreneurial show, I will shout out the Main Street Alliance. I think I would look up the Main Street Alliance and see if there is a local chapter near you. The Main Street Alliance is the national organization comprised of small business owners, of small entrepreneurs that will keep you updated about what bills are on the table being introduced locally or federally that impact small business operations, prices, all of that. And they are people who want to profit, but also don't want to exploit the people,
Right.
right? Or the earth. And so I think that they're find an avenue of how to get involved, whether that's just going to an event to meet people, or showing up to a hearing, or maybe even testifying, right, about your experience as a small business owner and what you actually need. I think the more small business owners that come out and advocate for themselves is critical. I think it will be part of the transformation that we need over the next 50 to 100 years to correct where we are right now. Because small businesses are solving like local problems, local solutions, and so we need more of that.
Yeah.
But also, if you're not the type that wants to join an organization, it really matters when you call or email your local legislators. And you can literally Google that. Who represents me, right? And there are lots of websites that'll pop up where you can put in your address and it'll tell you who your senator is, who your delegate is, who your state representatives are, and even your city. So you just have to Google it and literally one email or one phone call, even if it's a voicemail to a legislators, it's huge. They don't just see it as, oh, this is one person. They know that when one person calls, there's at least 100 more people that are dealing with that and feel that way. So they weigh your call and your perspective really heavily, even when one person calls. And I just want to say that because a lot of people are like, my vote doesn't matter. My voice doesn't matter in this conglomerate of a system, but it actually really does. And most people think it doesn't, so they don't call. And that's the problem. So I would say that. Yeah.
And I'm gonna add one to it, and I just was thinking this like throughout as you were talking, because when you first started talking about the restaurant industry and the restaurant minimum wage and the the tip culture, I see so many debates on social media about tipping and this and that, and my response to it is always, y'all are talking about the wrong thing. Like, the wait staff is upset with the people for not tipping, and the people are upset that they got a tip. Neither one of those things is like the problem. The problem is that we have this like we have accepted that it is okay to pay someone pennies and they have to get their tip from the patron.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, we yelling at each other and we need to be yelling at the system, right? And the reason why I bring that up is because I think that we need to be more conscious in general of the narratives that we have internalized and not called into question.
Yeah, absolutely. Two things on that. Um, I did a workshop many, many years ago with some youth who were interested in getting in social justice. The workshop was about stereotypes, the narratives that we get ingrained in our mind and we don't even know where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
So in the workshop, I went around the room, I put on big pieces of paper around the room, different positions that are typical in the restaurant industry, waiter, manager, dishwasher, cook, host. And I told them all to silently go around and just write the first words that came to their head when they read the word, right, on the paper. So they all went around and did it. And you would be amazed at the stereotypes that these young people had about people in the restaurant industry. Um, like some racist stuff, sexist stuff, you know? And where does that come from, right? And it's hard to talk about. So the second thing that I wanted to bring up was where it does actually come from and why we accept the way that it is. It's an ugly history and it's hard for people to talk about, but it's the truth. So, after Reconstruction in America, um, you have the emergence of different types of industries. We go from being, a plantation and farm-based economy to industry rising. And one of those industries that rose is the restaurant industry. Okay, but we still have farming and we still have domestic work, but other types of work are happening. So, what had happened was a bunch of people got pissed off because there were no labor standards, right? And there was no minimum wage, there was no occupational safety and health, right? So there was a lot of really bad things that happened to people, and they started organizing and forming unions, right? To bargain with their employers. We need safety protections. We need at least a minimum wage, right? We don't want our kids working here, that type of stuff. Slaves who were recently, or our people, formerly enslaved people, right, as they were traveling and leaving the South, were trying to get jobs, and most of the unions rejected them. They wouldn't let Black people unionize, right, and get those types of jobs. But one industry did unionize that hired Black people, and that was the Pullman car porters.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's A. Philip Randolph. So A. Philip Randolph organized all of these Black men, right, to have fair wages and stuff. So other industries saw that and they were like, no more. Okay. So the restaurant industry in particular, they started organizing. They formed the Restaurant Association, and they saw that in France, in the restaurant industry, it was very posh and swank. But they wanted to bring that culture here, but they didn't have slavery there. So they were like, well, we'll hire um, former slaves here, but we're not going to pay them. They can just live on tips. And it was mostly Black women that they hired, right, to work in the first restaurants in the United States. Um, and that we weren't paid anything. Then, um, So that was like, the 1860s all the way through the 1930s. In the 1930s, the Great Depression happened. So everyone's poor and,
Mhm.
basically Franklin Delano Roosevelt and everyone, they organized and they passed the New Deal. So then everybody, right, is getting a minimum wage and puts these different protections in place. The government invests in businesses, right? And regenerates the economy. But there were three classes of people who were left out, and that was farm workers. Farm workers to this day still don't get a guaranteed minimum wage. Black people, and it is now still Black people, but also largely Latin immigrants,
Mhm.
right, in the industry today,
Yeah.
still don't get a minimum wage. It was domestic workers. So domestic workers still to this day aren't guaranteed a tip minimum wage. It was also mostly Black women. Today it is Black women and Latin women and immigrant women who make up the large portion of domestic work. And it was restaurant workers, right? Also another type of service like domestic work. So that was in 1934, that they were left out. But what did happen for the restaurant workers is that they got um, a sub minimum wage.
Hmm.
It was at the time a 60% of the overall minimum wage, and tips would have to make up the rest of it. So that was in the 30s. But then in 1991, the Restaurant Association, bigger and powerful, right? We've got 70 years of restaurants growing, figuring out their systems, how to scale, right? In 1991, they're so powerful that they strike a deal with Congress saying, we'll stop opposing raising the overall minimum wage, but you have to freeze the tip minimum wage at $2.13 forever. So that's what it still is today. Why there's a sub minimum wage. And so $2.13 in 1991 was 60% of the minimum wage. It meant something. It was $4, right? Back
Right.
then, which is shameful. But now it's 213 and the minimum wage is seven something, right? Federally. And in some states it's $15 an hour. And it's still this low sub minimum wage. You basically have people just fully living off of tips. The $3 or $2, whatever it is an hour, that you never see that on an actual paycheck.
I mean, how
Most
could
tipped
you? Like,
workers
if
get
you think
something, a
about
stub of
like
paper that
taxes and
says this is
everything
not a
else,
check.
like, how could you even see that on a
Yeah.
paycheck? Like, I think that's so insane. And it's
Yeah.
like, I know that I didn't know that history. So thank you for sharing the full history. But I also didn't always know and understand how wait staff were being paid, right? Like, so you have people that are very upset about this like situation. And I think even now, a lot of people don't really understand. Like when you hear tip, you think that is in addition to, right? Like you're getting paid and then
Right.
I am tipping you. But when you are getting paid $2, you are not getting paid. Like that's not the case. So like
No.
the just the lack of knowledge, I think, leads to this anger of like, well, I'm paying for my food. Why do I have to pay this other thing, right? But your waitress
You're
is
not
not
just
your
paying the
enemy.
server. That tip. But you're not just paying the server. The server takes that tip and pays out the busser, the bartender, the runner, sometimes the host too. Okay? So it's not just the server, right, who makes that. You're talking about the whole front of the house operation in restaurants that make nothing, that the customer is
Right.
paying
So
your
you put that
wage.
little $5 on the table and six people gotta split that $5.
Yes.
Like that,
Yes.
like that is insane to me.
That
And
is the legacy of slavery in the
right, but that's
economy
like
today.
so insane. And I feel like, I guess for me, like thinking about, you know, stepping into your lane of advocacy sometimes is just when you hear that conversation changing the narrative, right? Like, like I like the, that one always gets me going. The monkeys in the barrel thing gets me going because I'm like Black Wall Street, like let's not do this. Like we have been systematically like all of our efforts have been systematically destroyed. Like, let's stop that narrative. Like, but I think that we have to start dissecting some of these things and making sure that we are not adding further to these incorrect narratives.
Absolutely. And it's hard in particular about the restaurant industry because no one wants to talk about slavery, right? It happened so long ago. And it's not just Black people that work in the restaurant industry, right? Everybody
Right.
works in the industry. So it's hard to talk about it as a racial justice issue, right? Or a women's justice issue because everyone has accepted that 213 or $3 is acceptable somehow. And so I don't accept it, which is why I continually talk about the problem, but I've talked about it every which way so that people can hear it, right? You have to shift your message depending on who you're talking to. But as two Black women, as entrepreneurs, I feel comfortable telling you this is what it is. This is
No,
some
it is
slavery
what it
shit.
is. Like it really just is what it is. It's like crazy. Like I think the like even before I knew like some of the like history about it, the moment that it shifted for me. So like you have the bag boys at the grocery store, right?
Hmm.
Um so there's some grocery stores that allowed you to tip them, and there's some that didn't, right? My grandmother raised me, so I was always, she's old school. She's, gonna have the guys come bring the stuff out, and it was just me and her for like a long time. So especially if something's heavy, she gonna have the boys bring the stuff to the car, yada yada yada. And there's some stores where you can tip them, and some where the guys are like, no, 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 I can't accept a tip, right? And there was this one store we went to frequently, and at one point you could tip them, but then they increased their pay. And when they increased their pay, they were no longer allowed to take tips. And I was like, that is messed up. Like, if I still want to give you extra money, and I was like, that's just messed up. Like that,
It's a tip.
you know what I'm saying? Like it's one thing for you to say, I'm gonna pay you less because you get paid tips, which is still insane. And I'm not like accepting that as a thing. But we collectively have apparently accepted that as a thing. But it's another thing to say, if I give you more money, you cannot then get money from somewhere else. That is crazy.
Let me tell you about it. It is so effed up. So with the fight for, so that is not anyone that the gentlemen, the boys who are helping with the groceries, that wasn't them, right? Anybody who is making a minimum wage. You're not rich, you are still barely able to make ends meet. It is not in your self-interest to deny getting a little bit extra that could help you that day. So that is management saying,
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
management setting a policy, right?
No, it's
And
absolutely because they
that's,
were fearful. They were fearful of being seen taking the tip, right? And there's like a older black lady. I mean, she gotta be 90 or something, like, because her daughter works at the store as well, and she's older than me. And I don't care what y'all say. I'm sliding $5 in her pocket every time I see her, but I understand,
mhm,
so I know not to do it in a way that draws attention. But that, yeah, it's management. It's
yeah,
hands down
it's
management that
management.
is saying, you can't do this. And that to me speaks to, what you were saying earlier, like the real feelings and thoughts of corporate America.
It's to exploit people and try to keep people down so that they, in my perspective, so that they have a continual pool of workers, right?
Yes.
Of people who are relying on something instead of have the actual means that they need to think creatively about what the fuck they actually want to do with their life. They want to keep people in a position of dependency. So, this is the biggest because I still, even though I'm entrepreneur, I still advocate for this change because I'm passionate about food and I want to run my own restaurant one day. In fact,
Hmm.
my grandmother used to run a restaurant. It's this little place in Frederick, Maryland, um, called the Looking Glass, or no, called the White Rabbit Grill. I knew it was
Okay.
Alice in Wonderland. The food is so good and it's so cute, and I just see myself owning it and like keeping that legacy one day. So still want to do this, but I don't want to run a business where I'm exploiting people.
Yeah.
So I still advocate for this. I want to change the playing field here in Maryland, and I know that it's possible in this state because in the 80s, um, there were 7 states that changed. California, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Alaska, Hawaii, and I think maybe one Nevada. Um, all of those, none of those states have a sub minimum wage. So if you are a tipped worker in a restaurant or a nail salon or anywhere, you make at least the minimum wage plus your tips on top.
Hmm.
Plus your tips on top. So those states have been doing that for the last 40 years, right? And none of their restaurant industries have collapsed. In fact, all of the data shows that they have sustained and even grown.
Hmm.
Duh, because you're
Right.
reinvesting in people, your main infrastructure that serves and cooks the food. Okay? You're taking care of people, so people are like, I'm gonna stay here and take care of you. And with your tips on top, you can actually make like a decent living, okay? So we're trying to do that here in Maryland too. And the politicians on both sides of the table are like, we don't want to do that. We'll consider raising wages for everyone, but we don't want to get rid of the sub minimum wage. We don't want to phase it out over the time. And they keep saying things will fail, even though they have the examples. 40 years, right, of evidence of it being okay. And I'm just not okay with that. So I'm, going to continue to fight and advocate because I know it's possible. And my daughter is 7 years old and she plays little games, where she serves people on
Hmm.
her tablet and stuff. And it's something like 8 out of 10 Americans gets their first, like, works in the restaurant industry at some
Hmm.
point in time,
Yeah.
right? So I just feel like before my kid gets there, like, she needs to be able to make at least a fair minimum wage, a living wage, actually. Um, so yeah.
No, it's insane. Um, like it's insane when you really get to the nuts and bolts of it. Um, I mean, I'm not trying to open a new can of worms, but this is a whole different topic, and maybe we'll come back and talk about this. But I mean, I think a big part of that also is the like villainization of the working class, right? Like
Hmm.
and of poverty, right? So
Yep.
we make it seem like people are doing something wrong, and people are working hard. People are
Hard.
working hard, and it doesn't make sense to me in a country that's supposed to be, we supposed to be the biggest and baddest of everything, but you have people that the hardest working people are not able to pay their bills. Like that doesn't make sense. Like, and we want to keep switching the narrative so that we don't really talk about that, but you shouldn't be working two and three jobs and still not be able to pay your bills. It does not make sense. And for me, again, I'm always like the outlier with like, two people arguing and I'm like, well, I see a third option, right? Like for me, that whole argument when it was returned to work after COVID, everybody was like, people don't want to work, people don't want to work. And I'm like, no, people couldn't go to work. And then they realized they didn't have to do the things that they were doing previously for zero money. They
Mm-hmm.
realized that they
Yeah.
could do something easier and make more
Yep.
money. And so now they don't want to go back to pennies. That's what they don't want to do. I know some people that, service is in their blood and that is what
Mhm.
they, enjoy. And if they receive the same love back that they love of what they do, I'm sure that they would be glad to show up to work every day, but
Yes.
it's you're squeezing people out of those industries. And then you're like, well, why doesn't anybody want to come and work on their feet for hours for $0 and 2 cents?
Yep. That's exactly what happened. And in fact, because of that, particularly in the restaurant industry, where people were like, I don't want to expose other people or get exposed without a guaranteed wage, a lot of businesses just started paying $15 an hour plus tips on top anyway,
Right,
right? And they're still doing it. So it is possible when you problem solve.
right.
And so just like for me, it took having that bicycle accident and put me, on crutches and I couldn't work. I literally had to figure something else out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what businesses have to do on a regular basis with the changing landscape. They had to do that with COVID. Things aren't the same now. They had to change when the internet, right, became
Right,
popular. Like there's always something, climate change, right? Like
right.
there's always something that is forcing us to adapt. And so that's the name of the game.
Yeah,
Adaptation and growth and just being willing to be uncomfortable, um, to be a successful entrepreneur.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think also just willing to do the different thing.
yeah,
Like you spoke about how like, there's this narrative that it's not possible, right? And like, like you just said, COVID showed us like it was so many things that happened like between March and April that was never possible before. But all of a sudden, like there was
hmm,
no way for all of these children to have computers if their parents couldn't buy computers. But all of a sudden, every child went home with a laptop. All of a sudden, all of these offices that could not offer work from home figured some stuff out and made it
yep,
happen, right? And so sometimes it is going against the grain or going against the narrative, but also you mentioned all of the different ways where it has proven successful. So one, seeking truth, right? But two, um sometimes you have to be that example. Sometimes you have to
yeah,
be the example that there is a counter narrative. So, and that's social justice, that's in your business. There's a million ways that you can be that example, but we don't have to keep, you know, feeding into narratives that are no longer feeding us.
hmm, yes. But it's hard,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless you're doing the intentional work every day to take care of yourself, to do the reading, to center, right? To like process your thoughts. Otherwise, it's just easy for the neural pathways in our brain to like loop and repeat the same story, the same behavior and patterns. Um, so you got to be real deliberate about creating new neural pathways within yourself. So then you take action, right, in a different way.
Yeah.
That's what shit is about, I think,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, is what you tell yourself is possible and believe in it. So then you act like it's possible and do
Yes.
the things that make it become possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Their belief is like the huge, like that's huge. Like I think that that is where it all starts, right? And it's like you said, it's not easy. It's not going to be comfortable, right? But I think when you have the belief that the thing can happen, you move so much differently. And I
Yeah,
think, a lot of us sit in the frustration of where we are, but we don't allow ourselves to believe that it can be different.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm going to go ahead
And
and
so
wrap
that's
up.
why I'm a coach. That's
I
why I'm a
like,
coach. That's why you're a coach.
we've gotten like so much and so much richness, and I'm gonna be honest with you, you've reignited something in me in just this conversation, because I definitely was team, okay, y'all done decided y'all want to go this way, I'm about to go sit my good old self down, and I mean, like clock
I
out.
mean, that feeling
And
is
I think
valid.
and I think a lot of people feel that way. And I've, had a
Yes.
conversation with one of my good friends, and she was like, "No, we need to do." And I was like, "Girl, look, you go ahead. I'm gonna be right here in my own land because because we have fought for so long, right? We
Yeah.
have been at the forefront of so many things, but I think we may not necessarily need to be, at the front of the protest line, but that doesn't mean that we can't take action to
Absolutely.
invoke change.
In fact, I'm going to ask you if you're an entrepreneur to save your energy and not go to the protest line, okay? Um, because what you are doing as an entrepreneur, as a small business person, is building a new system to solve a new problem. And we need you to do that because literally what's happening right now is that the capitalist won, the super capitalist, not the capitalist, the super capitalist won this last election. And they have taken all this extra capital, our money, our taxes out to put into their projects and shit even more. And they are using oppression tactics to the max, to the point of violence and murder against they're killing white people now, okay? We
Look,
ain't seen
look,
this
look. I
in a
was like,
long
oh
time,
Lord Jesus.
okay?
Well, well, like we have made
Well,
a turn.
okay. So, they are okay. They're just doing the most and the worst, and we have to build new systems, right?
Right,
Got to have people that are building new systems that have the capital to show up and participate in building new systems, including a new democracy. The reason that people like Elon Musk have the power that they do is because they've been building businesses and reinvesting in businesses and
right.
taking big risks, and then taking their money and going and talking to legislators. Work this deal for me. Let me get this land to build this out
Right.
here, right? And do this here and here, right? I can solve this problem. And the legislators are like, okay, cool. That sounds cool, right? I'm going to give you the tax write-off. I'm going to give you this or that. It's because he has those type of people have the time and the money to go and talk to legislators every fucking day if they want to and take them out to lunch and build a relationship and trust. So I want Black women, I want Native American women, immigrant women, just brown women, LGBTQ women, and men too, anyone from a marginalized, historically marginalized background, I want them to become entrepreneurs and build new systems and get the capital they need to do the same stuff. Because coming from our backgrounds, we're not building businesses to further exploit people.
Right.
We're not doing it. Like our people take money and put it into the nonprofits, right? That deal with things we care about, maternal health and environmental justice and childcare and public education, right? Like studies show that, history show that. So I want that. I want us to be able to invest in new systems and let their old shit die. And their shit is going to die because every time this happens in history, it happens over and over when the bullies get too much power, then they start hurting the masses fight back. We just don't take that shit. There's only so much we will put up with. And so COVID was a breaking point.
Yeah.
Things started to shift. This is another breaking point too. And things are going to shift. Things are really horrible now, but they will shift back in our favor. Just like in the 30s, everyone was broke and poor and the Dust Bowl and all of this, and it forced a shift.
Yeah.
Slavery was unsustainable at some point in time, right? The people that had
Right.
enough forced a shift, right? So I'm actually very excited about the crumbling um and the
No,
rebuilding.
and
So there's
I
enough
get that.
people
Like some
who are
people,
protesting.
I've said something similar, and some people like didn't quite understand it. But I'm like, sometimes something has to break all the way. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it
Hmm.
just it's
Yeah.
like, you like as a parent, it's always so difficult when your child is like learning to walk and move and do all these things, right? Because you gotta let them bump their knees. And that's the only way that they're going
Yes.
to eventually walk. And so sometimes it has to
Yes.
be that. So all right, I'm gonna wrap us up because we could keep
Yes.
going, and there's so much in this lane, and I know we're gonna have
Yes.
to like revisit and have more conversations because I really, um, like I feel like we started with one objective and we ended up somewhere else, but it was beautiful in the process. You know what I'm saying? So, and I love that. Like I love, because I do think it's like it's needed in this moment for people to see some hope because I see a lot of people in response to all of this that are like feeling hopeless because it's like, well, this is not my fight, so I don't want to get in it, or the things that people are asking them to do are not within their, ability to do, right? And I feel like you gave some really good ways that we can get involved, but also that we can protect ourselves in the process. So I want to thank you for that and sharing that. So I'm going to go to our wrap up questions, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity just to share with everybody how they can get in touch with you and what if anything you want to share from your world. So the first wrap up question is, tell
Sure.
me about your favorite pair of pajamas.
I thought about this question. And so really there are two answers. My favorite pajamas mostly are no pajamas at all. I
Hey,
prefer to be pajamaless.
and that's cool.
But um I do have a pair of pajamas that I bought last year for Christmas, and I was really excited about it. They're Ralph Lauren Polo Bear pajamas, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a matching set. And I got one for everyone in my family so we could take one of those
Oh,
cheesy
yes, we
Christmas
do it every year.
pictures together.
We do it every year.
So, yes.
So I quite literally have about 10 to 12 pairs of Christmas pajamas. Like we get a new Christmas set every year. I like pajamas, like for real.
Profits in
Yeah,
pajamas.
like
Yes.
it is not a gimmick. It is real life, real life. Like I love pajamas, and no matter what the answer to the question is, I'm like, yep, yes, also yes. Like I love I have every kind of pajamas that you could think of. Um, okay, my time freedom allows me to.
Allows me to go to the spa and swim in heated pools whenever I want in the middle of the day. Um,
I love that.
allows me to treat myself to lunch, to try fabulous new food all around the city regularly. Allows me to rent boats and sail around the harbor. Allows me to invest in myself and go to trainings and seminars without having to ask someone else for permission. It enables me to take days off when I want to, be at home with my daughter who's 7 when I need to, and not stressed out about having to answer to somebody else about
Hmm.
where I need to be, right? So
Yeah.
I'm never giving that up.
Yeah, I don't I don't know if people realize like how valuable that is because I'm just thinking back to COVID and um with the like balloon, industry like with that, being because I do mostly large events. So that was really on shutdown. And a lot of people pivoted to like doing, other stuff. That wasn't what God told me to do. So I didn't do that. God told me to pour into the coaching, right? But a lot of friends and family with good, goodwill, right? We're sending like job, postings and stuff because they knew my business was just on ice, right? And I was just like,
Yeah.
I will be poor first. Like I've seen the other side. Like I don't I'm good. I'm good on that. I'm really good on that. Like so yeah, I think that people and it doesn't mean again, I'm not team quit your 9 to 5. If your 9 to 5 working for you, you better hold on to that good old 9 to 5 and go every day. I'm not saying that, but even in that world, you need to create time freedom for yourself. Okay, so last
Yeah.
question. What's the best advice you can give anyone seeking the profits in pajamas lifestyle?
Hmm. Just start no matter where you're at. That if you have um, get clarity. I would say first get clarity about what brings you joy and what is the thing that you could do that you forget to eat and you don't care, right? Because
Right,
you're so focused and you love it that much.
right.
Okay. I'm not saying not to eat, but what is your genius zone? Find out what that is because there's some way that you can turn that into a
Mhm.
business or a side hustle at least and make a lot extra money and get yourself some freedom. And so start. And whatever you figure out is your genius zone. Don't put yourself in a box. Allow yourself to shift and figure out what your offer is or what you're offering over time. And don't be afraid of putting something out that isn't
Mm.
perfect, so just get started.
That last part. That last part. Well, one, just get started, but two, stop being afraid of it not being perfect. There's so many dreams that are sitting on a
Yeah,
shelf waiting for perfection. Like just let it out there.
yeah,
I just read this book with book club, and one of the things they talked about was kindergarten girls would just like they have no inhibition, right? By the time they go from 5 to 6, all of a sudden they only want to do the things that they're good at. And
Yeah.
that's so sad to me. Like at 5, like
Yeah.
you just stop like, being daring in that way, And so I think sometimes
Yeah.
we don't see it because if we're good at a lot of things, we don't, you can hide behind that. But do the thing that it
Hmm.
might be messy, but it's that thing that keeps calling you. Like, and know that
Yes.
it's
That's
gonna
what you're
work itself
supposed to
out in
do.
the end, like,
Yeah.
and know that the people that you
Yeah.
follow are not perfect either. They just don't talk about the messy parts.
Right. I really believe that there is like everyone who is born, like you have something very unique to contribute to make this whole like ecosystem work.
Yes.
Um, and it's programmed in you, like deep in your DNA,
Yes.
that's why you got to center and like listen to yourself. Like
Right.
what
Right.
what's in here? What's the stardust telling me, right? Because and do that. And
Right.
remember, like I don't know. I always think about where we actually are. Like we're on a planet that's
Mm-hmm.
spinning around a ball of fire. And how crazy is that we just keep spinning and
Right.
going around and growing. And I'm like, well, that's what I do too.
Right. Right.
I'm
No,
just gonna
I mean
keep
it's
keep
just
going and keep growing.
right. But like you
Even if
were
it's
uniquely
scary.
formed, right? And like I totally agree with you. Like there's something inside of you. And I think that we're taught to look outside of ourselves, right? But it's really something that's inside of you that is trying to get out. So like what can you move out of the way so that you can hear that voice more clearly? I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us how we can get in touch with you. What is going on in your world, like that you really want us to know about? It's your moment.
Yeah. Thank you again for this opportunity. So people can learn more about me and get a hold of me by going to my website. It's www.nikkimg.com. That's Nikki, M as in Marie, G as in Georgina.com. And that is my full name, Nikki Marie Georgina. And so there you can contact me. My contact button is all over. But I want people to check out my Zombie to Superhuman quiz. It's on the
Mm,
website, and it's like 6, 7 questions or so. Um, Designed to help you reflect on if you are in alignment, what your energy is like, if you're in your genius zone, and how burnt out you are. So I have this framework after, I don't know, 12, maybe actually longer than that, probably like 13 or 14 years I've been collecting all the puzzle pieces. What does this mean?
yes,
How do we sustain? What is that voice in my head? Why do I feel burnt out? What is my energy, right? Like questions,
yes,
questions.
yes,
And I have this framework that basically is when you're burnt out, you're in zombie mode.
yes,
And when you are in full alignment in your purpose, in your genius zone, with an abundant mind, taking risks, you're superhuman. You can manifest, right? And
yes,
make incredible shit happen, just like I
yes,
have. Um, Build nonprofits, win statewide policy campaigns, start businesses,
yes,
right? Like
yes,
help transform people's lives, whatever. And I recognize I'm like, what how do I get in superhuman mode? And then what leads me to be in zombie mode where I don't want to be around
yeah,
anyone and I'm thinking negative thoughts about other people, about myself, and I don't feel like I can go on? Like, what is the difference, right? And
yeah,
so the quiz helps you to see where you're at if you are superhuman, zombie, human, right? Or somewhere
right,
in between, ascending or
right,
descending. Um, and if you feel like you're burnt out or in zombie mode or want to just even get closer to being in alignment, you can contact me and we can, see if my coaching program is right for you. I have a 6-month coaching program offer that's foundational where I teach people about my reclaim framework. And then I have a 12-month program specifically for executive directors that does the reclaim framework, really working on mindset, boundaries, abundance, but also then is teaching people how to power map and develop strategic plans to actually manifest their dreams, complex campaigns, whether that's electoral, fundraiser, or what have you, it's all the same. And how to direct people so you don't feel like you have to do it all yourself. Really how to delegate, how to manage your time, how to document things in a way that's transparent and accountable with other folks, a lot of executive functioning things. And then we go on a retreat where we're focusing on cycles of rest and ways that you inspire yourself, rest in different ways. So go to my website, nikkimg.com, check it out, and I hope to hear from you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you again, Nikki, for being here. And just, I mean, so much, like, it's just a wealth of information that you share about advocacy and about, staying balanced in that whole process. So I appreciate that. Y'all go take the quiz. Go take the quiz. I love a good quiz. I absolutely love a good quiz. Sometimes you don't realize like blind spots, right? And sometimes you take a quiz or something like that, and you're like, oh. Oh, oh, I thought I was here, but I'm here, right? So go ahead and take the
Yeah.
quiz, reach out to Nikki about her programs. Um, Before I leave y'all, let's just, quick of what's going on in the workflow world. So y'all know December came out the Capable Confident You. January was I don't do it all, and neither should you, which aligns with the calendar detox. I have my anthology for the podcast. So many of the guests that y'all know and love from the podcast are involved in this anthology project, Redefining Success Beyond the Grind. Understand that this like podcast community is like far beyond just they come on this, we stick together after this. There are collaborations. We have a Facebook group. We do things together. So we have that coming out on March the 24th. And then on March the 27th here in New Orleans, we're going to have a summit that's around that book. So we're going to have past guests from the book, some that are not in the book that are going to be coming, and we're getting down to it. We're getting down to redefining success. We talked about it a lot here as well. Like it doesn't have to look like what the narrative says. So we're going to get down to that. So those tickets are on sale, so get your ticket. We have early bird pricing for that, so get that so you can get that best pricing, and you will also get a signed copy of the book. We're going to have a book signing at the event. So you'll get a signed copy of the book, as well as we're going to do a live version of the podcast at the event. So we're going to do how we do for our annual episode. On our annual episode, we always have whoever was there for the previous year. It's going to be that same style. It's going to be panel style discussion, but it's going to be the ladies that are involved in the summit. We're going to do that at the end. And so if you're in the audience, you get to ask questions because y'all get to hear these great conversations, but y'all don't get to like jump in. And I know when I listen to my favorite podcast, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm like, I want to say this and I want to say that. So you get an opportunity to ask questions during that process. So I will have all of that as well as Nikki's information in the show notes so that y'all can get all this good information so that we can start moving forward in positive ways, right? There's a lot going on in the world. We don't want to get stuck in negative space. We want to, do things that are positive, productive, and that are helping ourselves and our community. So, again, Nikki, thank you for being here. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to the Prophets in Pajamas podcast. I hope you got some great tips to start working with these. Want to stay connected? Follow me at Your Workflow on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. For more information about creating balance in your life, register for my upcoming calendar detox challenge at CoachDanniD.com. Don't forget to subscribe, join the community, and book a call to find the workflow program that best fits your needs.